everyone. You're watching Soundwaves TV. Chasta here, and I am thrilled to have local legend, Bay Area history through and through right here, Mr. Leo Rosales. You say your last name so much better. Will you say it for me?
Rosales.
Oh, my God. It just gives me chills.
It's got to roll up your tongue. Yeah. It's got to roll up the tongue.
I'll work on that. Of course, of Malo fame, Momotombo, which we're going to talk about here, Mombotomo-SF, a gig coming up very soon for Cinco de Mayo.
Right, we're at the longboard.
At the longboard. Wow, what a treasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Oh, my gosh. I can already tell you we could probably talk for 4 hours.
Well,
I'll try to make it
being with you is a total, unbelievable treat.
Thank you.
So thankful to be here with you.
That means
I'm a big fan.
Same.
Big fan of yours and your crew.
And we share a love for your daughter, Jax.
Right.
Shout out to Jax. So I actually met Leo through Jax, who is a dear friend of mine and your first daughter, oldest daughter.
Jacqueline, yes.
Yeah, Jacqueline. And she's just so lovely, such a wonderful spirit.
Yeah.
You did a really good
Very
job.
proud of her.
Yeah.
Very proud of her. She's a great mom.
Yes.
A great humanitarian.
Yes.
And I'm just proud to be her dad.
You guys seem a lot alike. You've got the same eyes and the same soul. And I love that.
She looks like my mom.
Does she?
Yeah, she totally looks like my mother, and so sometimes I just gaze at her.
Yeah.
And she'll see what are you looking at?
Stop it. That's so cute.
Yeah.
So I talk about, Bay Area history, of course. Momotombo is members of Malo and members of Santana.
Right.
You were in Malo, original member from what year?
From 1971 till about 73, that time period there.
Yep.
Where things were really rocking with the first album that Malo made,
Yeah.
and then into the Malo Dos album,
Yes.
which I participated 100% on.
Sure. And the singer of Suavecito.
Well, actually, here's the truth about that.
Okay.
Suavecito was written by Pablo Tellez, Abel Zarate, and Richard Bean.
Mm-hmm.
And before I got into the band, Richard Bean, who was one of the writers, recorded the song.
Mm-hmm.
So as time went on, they when they were recording with Warner Brothers, after Richard had sung the song, there was just some personnel change that they needed to make.
Yeah.
So when they hired me, they said, one condition, you need to sing this song, Suavecito.
Because your voice was in a higher register, right?
Yeah, I think so. A little higher register.
Yeah.
So they said that the gig is for you.
Yeah.
But we want to know if you can pull off singing this song because it's going to be a hit on the radio and it's going to be around for many decades.
As it has been.
Yeah. So I've been the face for that song.
Yeah.
And I had the rare opportunity to sing a hit single.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's to give credit to where credit is due.
I appreciate that you just did that because you didn't have to. You could have just run with it.
Right. Yeah.
But you're an honest Joe, and I love that.
I got to do it. Got to do it.
It's cool. There's a video that has 14 billion views on YouTube of you singing on American Bandstand. So
well, actually,
but you couldn't sing. Is that?
Well, here's the deal with that story.
Yeah.
We did do that on American Bandstand, but there was a fire at Paramount. And in the vault, all of the film and video that was shot got burned in a fire.
We have talked about that here on Soundwaves TV.
Right.
Yes.
So we were part of that. And then we went to Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
And the first edition when he had Rolling on the River.
Of course, his show. That was in Canada.
In Toronto.
It? Yeah, in Toronto, yeah.
So that was me singing there, and that was me singing it live on their program.
Yeah.
And that's received 5 million hits.
That's amazing.
And I didn't even, I can't, when I first saw it, I told Virginia, I said, this thing's had over 1 million views. And I said, wow, that's crazy. 20 years later, 5 million views.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we still sing it to this day.
Of course, you have to. Yeah, it's such a hit.
But I have to be careful that when Virginia's there, that I'm not looking at her when I'm singing it.
Yeah.
Or I start getting all choked up and crazy and I lose where I am in the song.
Oh my God. That's
so I tell her, I go over there.
Go hide in the corner so I can sing that. That's the cutest thing.
Yeah.
You guys have been together 38 years, you said?
38 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful run.
Yeah. So, we are very proud that we both came from, a warm-up relationship.
I call it practice marriage. I had a practice marriage. Yeah.
Yeah. So we both had a practice marriage, and then this one we were very sketchy about getting married right away. So we waited 10 years.
Yes.
Until our kids said, "Okay, enough is enough."
That's great.
You guys, let's get it done. So we did.
Well, you knew it was a sure thing at that point.
Yeah. And then it was Virginia's children, and then my Jacqueline and Bethia. And we had, instead of the Brady Bunch, we called ourselves the Rodriguez Bunch.
I love that. That's so cute. That's great.
So
you came up in a time in San Francisco that is legendary. Quite literally. I mean, talking about the Fillmore West and all of the history that came out of this place. I mean, people all over the world talk about it. And it's one of the things that we're most proud of here. I talk about this being like our quilt, our blanket of music in the Bay Area, right? Talk to me. I know you have a million stories. And by the way, thank you for bringing me this book, Voices of Latin Rock. This is all about Latin rock from the Bay,
Latin
right?
rock.
And he signed it for me, everybody. I'm so excited.
Well, you know who's in there? Tower Power, Azteca, Sly and the Family Stone, Malo, the Black Panthers, the Brown Berets.
Yes.
So it's the story of what was going on in the neighborhoods when the young musicians were just popping out of nowhere.
Yeah. And I have to say, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. There is no better time for Latin rock, Chicano rock to be celebrated, to be in the forefront, to be understood about what it brings to the rich cultural history of the Bay Area.
Exactly.
It is such an important thing. So I'm so glad that you're rocking it with Momotombo.
Right.
But take me back to that time.
Well, I think Carlos Santana, to me anyway, is the forerunner and the person who introduced us young people into this thing called Latin rock.
Yeah.
When I went, somebody told me, there's a group playing at the Fillmore. And I was like probably about 15,
I was going to say,
years
you're
old.
a baby,
Yeah, I was about 15 or 16. And I said, Santana, they said, this will blow your mind.
Yeah.
This is like crazy. We haven't heard anything like this. Because I was listening to Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Chicago, Grateful Dead, Led Zeppelin, James Brown, all of these real famous musicians, and watching them on the Ed Sullivan Show. And then we go to the Fillmore, and I see conga drums, and I see timbales, and I see a drum set. And then Santana comes out playing the song Waiting.
Oh, yeah.
And I just felt like I got baptized in this spiritual awakening that I said to myself, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Ooh, I have chills all over my body.
I was a freedom dancer, like with all the other hippies.
Sure.
I was I couldn't contain myself because the rhythm, and Carlos on the guitar, he was just so soulful. He just drove those notes into your heart. It was just an amazing experience.
Yeah.
So at that time, we had the Grateful Dead playing on the back of trucks on Haight and Ashbury, playing at Stigman Stern Grove or Speedway Meadows, and then there was also the Avalon Ballroom, the Straight Theater, Family Dog, Winterland, the Fillmore, and then everything at the park. And so when we were kids, I was too young to be a hippie.
Yeah.
But old enough to jump on the bus and go to Hippie Town.
I love it.
Or go to Golden Gate Park.
Yeah.
And then once I discovered the Fillmore, it was like, B.B. King, Curtis Mayfield, Blue Cheer, Emerson, they weren't around just yet, but all of those heavyweights. No, but I think I saw Big Brother and the Holding Company at the Mount Tamalpais Rock Festival.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
She's my favorite of all time. That's why.
So that's what was going on. And when Carlos was playing, I already had bands that we had, little garage bands.
Sure. Yeah.
So we were copying and writing our own stuff. We were juniors in high school. I went to Balboa High School.
Yeah.
And everybody was bringing out instruments and kind of copying what they were hearing.
Yeah.
So then when we saw Carlos, that was that's what we want to do. Yeah. So we gathered all these instruments and all these friends, and we started copying that, and that kind of schooled us into the African rhythm, salsa, Latin jazz, all kind of this mixture that
the fusion of it.
The fusion that Carlos, because he opened the door for that.
Yeah, of course.
And then it just from there it was it exploded everywhere.
How lucky were you to have him as a direct influence that you could stand in front of and see and then emulate and find your own sound?
Exactly.
What a gift.
And that's where Malo came in.
Yeah.
Because Arcelio Garcia, the lead singer for Malo and one of the founders, he thought, you know what? I don't want to copy Carlos exactly with the rhythm section.
Sure.
He goes, let's add horns and add some jazz flavor to it.
Yeah. And
some Latin jazz. So that's what RC did. He got 2 trumpets and a trombone. And And then he started writing tunes and incorporating that sound of jazz. And then it just kind of took us in another direction.
Yeah.
And then Jorge, even though he is Carlos's brother,
Right.
he had his own style. There were similarities in the tones and the phrasing, but Jorge it was very sentimental, very, just different, but the same, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
So when we were playing, when Jorge would do his solos, it was like, that's a Santana brother right there in his own right.
Yeah.
So that's how we experimented with rhythms, with horns, and we had some great players who were horn players who wrote these beautiful charts and just made the Malo sound become even bigger than when they first started.
Yeah.
Like the first one on the Warner Brothers label, the first Malo album was great. The second one was, you could see that we had brought in all those influences.
Yeah.
The jazz,
different layers.
the Afro-Cuban, so we even had Carlos's dad play the violin in a song. So it was, it was amazing. It was an amazing time.
That must have been mind-blowing for you to end up in that band, because you were young, right?
Yes.
How old would you have been then?
When I joined Malo, I was 17.
17.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like? Because you were already a player, but I have to imagine that would have challenged you.
Well, I was a senior in high school.
Yeah.
And I graduated a half a year early.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
went from graduating a half a year early to going on the road with Malo. First stop being New York.
Wow.
So I'm like this 18-year-old kid from Mission, went to Balboa High School, had a couple of garage bands.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm with a Warner Brothers label group, and we're playing in Carnegie Hall.
Carnegie Hall, yeah.
We're playing in Central Park.
Yeah.
We're doing a Pepsi commercial. We're up in the NBC building, and I'm like 17. I'm going like, and amazing, we're sound checking at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
And there's this guy standing in front of me, just sitting there looking at me, and I'm like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And he goes, you know those drums you're playing? And I said, yeah, LPs. He goes, I make those. Oh. I'm Martin Cohen from LP.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, wow, dude, what amazing. He goes, can I pick you up tomorrow at your hotel and take you around New York and show you around? And I said, okay.
Oh.
So, and then he picked me up and he took me around New York and just, really showed me a great afternoon. And he goes, I want you to endorse my instruments.
That's incredible.
And I was like one of the first ones in San Francisco.
Yeah.
In 1970, 71, where I was an endorsee for a major product like LP. Mm-hmm. So those are the great things that happen, and going off to New York and being out on tour for 30 days, and coming home a completely different person.
I was just gonna ask you that, because that is kind of the elephant in the room when you're that age and you just get thrown into this whole other world. How do you handle it? What do you do?
Well, unfortunately. Well, I handled it for a moment.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, I could see that was becoming a problem.
Of course.
The drugs and the drinking and the carrying on.
Access to anything you wanted.
Access to anything you want.
Yeah.
And it just got to a point where the music, as important as it was to me when I was young, because I used to wait for the bus and I'd practice and go to school, cut school, go to the park with Raul Rico, who played with Santana and also played with Malo first. Then he went to Santana. We used to have, we'd go to Crocker Amazon Park in San Francisco, with a bag of stems and weed, and we'd roll up and smoke and just play congas all afternoon.
Wow.
And that's what we did. We'd go to Aquatic Park, and the big Red Mountain Jugs would be our cowbells, and Mike Carabello would come out there, and Chapito Arias would come out there, and we just sit there and play. And so
legendary.
So that was how dedicated I was and in love with percussion and playing music. Because just a side note, my uncle Edgar Rosales was one of the original players for Cal Jader.
Oh, I didn't realize
back
that.
in the late 50s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he played congas and he sang.
Family.
Yeah, my
your
father
dad was a DJ, right?
Right, he was a radio broadcaster.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, he graduated in Nicaragua as a radio announcer on La Radio Mundial.
Yeah.
And then he came to San Francisco and he worked at Coffee Radio when it was just a little tiny place.
This was
over
in
the Mission.
50s?
Yes, 50s, early 60s.
Okay.
And then he went on to KBRG.
Uh-huh.
He did radio stations in Salinas.
Wow.
So, that's what was going on.
That's amazing.
So it was,
wow, you guys were capturing the culture of that time in this Bay Area from a couple of different angles in your family.
right.
Like, what a story, what a history that you have. Like,
Exactly.
that's
And interesting that when my uncle passed away,
Yeah.
my grandmother, she should have given the instruments to somebody else, but she gave them to me. At the time that Santana came out, it was like amazing.
Yeah.
So I was watching Santana and I see Chapito Perez playing timbales.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I got a set in front of my face. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
Wow, that's life-changing. Because you started on a full kit, right?
That was my love right there,
Yeah.
drum set.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I used to gather garbage cans, garbage pails, sticks from hangers, pie pans, books, and I would make my own drum set.
Oh, God, I
I'd
love
bring in
that.
the radio, AM only, KFRC,
Sure.
KYA, KDIA, KSOL. And there was no FM, just AM. And I'd sit there and I'd play and had all these great imaginations of like, one day, that's going to be me. I'm going to be out there doing it.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And Henry Mancini was one of my great, heroes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find myself on American Bandstand sitting in Henry Mancini's makeup chair.
I
I was like, I made it. I made it to the
You
top.
did.
If I die today, I
I'm
have made
good.
it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, great things like that happen. We were in New York one time, Raul Rico and I, we were walking down a corridor, and there was this African-American man sitting in an easy chair just playing his guitar. And we were playing that day, and we poked our heads in and said, hey, man, how you doing? What's up? And he goes, hey, fellas, what's going on? I said, oh, we'll be playing in a little while. I said, who are you? He goes, I'm B.B. King.
Oh.
And we're like,
You're like,
Okay.
excuse me, what?
so that kind of stuff happened all the time.
That's just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Like that, I can't imagine. I mean, all of the crossroads that you've had over these years and generations, you did step away from music for a little while.
Right. Yeah, that was like the backstory.
Right.
But what happened was in the interim, I got sidetracked.
Yeah.
I started going down the wrong side of the road, and it took me out of the scene for many years because I got completely addicted to substance.
Yeah.
Either
Like so
smoking
many.
or drinking or snorting or whatever.
Yeah.
Without going into the gory drug-a-log, it was a bad time for me.
Yeah.
And I lost everything that was setting the course for me.
Yeah.
Because I was set on this incredible journey as a young musician and had the opportunity to be with all of these great players.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have like a mentor, or not to say that woe is me, but I didn't have mentors to say, hey, why are you doing that?
Yeah. They keep you on the
Keep
right
me,
path.
yeah, pull me aside
Yeah,
and talk
yeah.
to me and say, you shouldn't be doing that because you're going to lose everything.
Yeah. Well, think about it. I mean, you were freaking on the precipice of 18 when you got into all this. I remember me as an 18-year-old. I was all over the place. So I can't imagine getting all of that thrown at you and having to figure out how to navigate it.
How to navigate it exactly. And then it actually put a lot of fear in me that, Spinal Tap, have you seen that movie?
course,
Of course.
yes,
All right.
yeah.
So I always kind of use that as an example because
Yeah.
Malo was on this trajectory.
Yeah.
Just everything was
Massive.
going beautiful.
Yeah.
And then it started to decline.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from playing big stadiums with Mountain or
Yeah.
10 Years After and
Yeah.
Quicksilver
Yes.
to playing in colleges. Not that anything wrong with college.
Right.
But we had this, where we were performing
Sure.
was at a high level.
Sure.
And all of a sudden we're like, instead of limousines, we're in rent-a-cars.
Yeah.
And then at that point, the experimentation became more threatening. And then all of a sudden it was like, where do I get this or where do I get that?
Yeah.
And then the music, which was always number one to me, then it became number two.
Yeah.
And then it became number three.
Yeah.
And I always use this as an example because I do some public speaking in the colleges for students. It's
great.
And I say music was like the woman I was in love with.
Yeah.
And then when I started experimenting, it's like I cheated on her.
That was your affair. Sure.
And I had an affair with the other.
And it took away from that pure
and it took-
love.
yes.
Yeah.
And then I had to crawl back because when I found recovery, which I'm proud to say I have 21 years in recovery.
Fantastic. That's incredible.
And those 21 years have all been nothing but short of miracles.
Yeah.
Because the trajectory that I was on, the destructive path that I was on,
Yeah.
there was no end in sight.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's no end in sight, but all you could see is a dead end street. You know.
Yeah.
But with the recovery, I was, I recovered, and I was restored to sanity.
Yeah.
And I had my moment of clarity that they talk about in the program.
Sure.
And I had that moment of clarity, and things changed from that day forth. And 21
miracle.
years. And then I was petrified of the music because I felt that the music was a trigger.
Sure, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So my wife, Virginia, said, we're going to go and you're going to play. And if it gets too much, and then you can just leave.
Yeah.
But you got to try.
Thank God for Virginia.
Yeah, she goes, you got to try. So her and her cousin, Tony Vella, he had a band, and he said, come on down and play. I said, oh, no, dude, I don't know if I can. He goes, well, if you want to, you can. But just come and just sit and watch.
Yeah.
So I got the courage to go up and play, and I felt like the shackles fell off, and I felt like I was free. And then from that day forth, I've been continually pursuing playing music, and eventually we got together with guys that played with Santana and guys that played with all of the Malo bands throughout the years.
Yeah, sure.
And we didn't want to use the Malo name because Arcelio Garcia was still alive. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
And that was his name.
Yeah.
I had, nobody had the right to take that name from him.
Yeah.
So we said, in honor of RC, let's just name this band that we're going to play tribute to.
Yeah.
We'll call it Momotombo, which is the first song on the first side of the second album.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
it is it's a nod.
Yes.
Because you're not a tribute band,
Right.
to be clear.
Exactly.
But you do pay tribute to.
Right,
Is
to
that
those.
the best way
exactly.
to put it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, or people say a cover band, say, well, no. And then we looked up the definition of a cover band, and that's not what we are. We're not
Yeah.
a cover band.
Yeah.
Because I wrote songs for Malo, Gabe wrote songs for Malo, so
Right.
we're the writers of those tunes.
Right, right.
So,
So you have every right and access to those tunes. You're not covering your own stuff.
right.
You're
Yeah.
playing your own
We're
stuff.
playing our own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do recommend for any of you, because the history of Malo in particular is fascinating, and ups and downs and bobs and weaves and all over the place. There's a really great series on YouTube where you guys going through, I think it's like 3 or 4 episodes maybe,
Yes.
where you go through some of those stories. So I highly recommend it. It's really fascinating.
And that was produced by Arcelio's daughter.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
She's in it. She kind
Right.
of talks in a little bit.
And one of the lead singers that Arcelio brought in, his name is Paul Benavides.
Yeah.
He was also there.
He's funny. He's
Yeah.
adorable. I like him a lot.
He's got a good wit, a good sense of humor.
I do want to leave on a note of the importance of music. I got really emotional in you were talking about finding your way back, because I talk so much about the power of music, because I feel like it saves people all the time from whatever they're dealing with. In your case, it probably saved your life.
Yes.
I feel like
It did.
It can make
It
that
forgave me and brought me back in.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like life
your
forgave us.
great
It's okay.
lover forgave you
Yeah.
and allowed you back in. Talk about the power of music. I ask in my interviews all the time. There's a movie, Almost Famous. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but the question in that movie is asked, what do you love about music? So what does that question mean to you?
First of all, when I first started playing music, and it was like this, like I said, the late 60s. So we were always like smoking weed to get high, and the music always felt better. You felt more creative. You can get really into the music, and you're listening to Led Zeppelin and you're listening to Jimi Hendrix, and you're high, and it sounds so great. And so it becomes like a habit that the only way to enjoy it is to change things up in your head.
Yeah.
And I learned through recovery when I came back that I said, how can I play music when I don't understand how I can do it without...
You had married the two.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So thanks to recovery and the power of that and getting over the fear of going forward, I found that music was a healing balm. That it all of a sudden, all of those lies started to go away.
Yeah.
They started to go away and farther, and that chatter in my head that, well, wouldn't it be better to be high, playing this song? And now there's a place called the zone in music.
I've heard that.
Where you're just flying. You're there and you're playing, and you're not like trying super hard, but you just like get on that wing, and like George Santana used to say, it's like a river.
Yeah.
It just flows. And maybe that leaf will stop on a rock for a second, but eventually the leaf will continue to flow down the river until it lands, where it's supposed to. So I love music in that what we're doing. I've had people come up with tears, literally tears, saying, "You transported me back to my prom. You transported me back to my first love."
Yeah.
She goes, "Thank you so." And I was like, I felt like I was a mystic.
You are.
Yeah, I felt
You're
like
a conduit.
Yeah, totally. And that's so when people say, "What about the music?" I said, "It's transporting."
Yeah.
Because it gets so seated in our conscious. Certain songs, like there's certain songs I can hear. I could see my dad. Yeah. Like I left my heart in San Francisco when my dad was a radio.
Sure.
He'd play his songs.
Yeah.
And I could see him. I could smell the food being cooked while he was on the radio. Santana, I've shed more tears listening to him play the guitar than, I could just like hum every note that he plays because I was so enamored by his ability of making the guitar cry, making the guitar laugh, talk to you. So music is magic. I can listen to music. It could be classical. It could be fusion. It could be country.
Yeah.
It could be mariachi music. And it all strikes a certain chord in my being, which means, because my daughter Monique says, "You're very eclectic." I said, yeah. Music is magic. It doesn't have to be one specific path.
Better off if it's not, to be honest.
Exactly.
I think the eclectic part is at least what brings a lot of flavor out in people. Like when I ask people what their favorite musicians are, and if they go Patsy Cline to E40, I'm like, yes, I'm in. Let's go. Like I love the range. I think that's really interesting. Well, Leo, I always consider what I get to do a gift. I'm not a musician and I don't play yet. Maybe one day. But this is truly a gift to understand music from your heart and your soul and through your story and how you come back to it. Thank God.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank God. You're
Grateful
back.
every day.
And yes, I'm sure. So you guys, you really have to check out Momotombo. Going to be at Longboard for Cinco de Mayo. It's actually the day before.
It's technically May 4th.
Yes, May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, May the 4th be with you. I like that. I'm going to use that.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
a T-shirt. May the 4th be with you.
Yes, and speaking of T-shirts, we got to give a shout out to this incredible T-shirt.
There you go, right
now this
there.
is a one of a one.
Yeah, one of a one.
One of a kind. It's so cool.
Yeah, my friend Phil Retamosa, who works for Meta. Okay. Yeah, he designed it for me, and he presented it as a gift.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What a treasure to sit down and actually chat with you where we could hear each other. We've met at birthday parties and gigs and things like that, but just to have this time with you has been wonderful.
I feel honored to be in your presence.
Thank you. Leo Rosales, check him out online. Thank you for watching Soundwaves TV.
You're welcome.
God, that was so incredible.